Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I rise to give my contribution on the salmon industry reform, and indeed reform is sorely needed and well overdue. Just because an industry is big, $1.36 billion doesn't make it good, and in fact the size of the industry is part of the problem here. The stocking densities, the extent of the industry, and just because an industry's been in our waters for 30, 45 years doesn't make it a traditional industry. We're talking about an island with a history of tens of thousands of years of human occupation, and let me just tell you that a few decades of an industry operating in our waters and getting bigger and bigger is not a traditional industry. But really this review is an acknowledgement that this industry is a fail. It has a fail on so many different levels. A fail when it comes to social licence, because the opposition to this industry is simply building. We've got campaigns now targeting the marketplace of this industry. We've got certifiers like the RSPCA pulling their certification for this product. It is a fail. It's a fail when it comes to the health of its fish. The mass mortality events just keep coming. I mean, 2025 was a low point when it came to mass mortality, with rancid fish, fish fat, and even fish bodies washing up on southeast beaches. But it's not the first one. In 23-24, 1 in 10 fish died in Macquarie Harbour. 1 in 10. What farmer would get away with 1 in 10 of their sheep dying in the paddock and being left there? And that was over the course of 7 months. In 2018, Macquarie Harbour lost $1.3 million fish. So this is an issue that is of significant concern, and it is a biosecurity fail. Ultimately, it's a biosecurity fail because not only are they not managing the risk of disease, they are failing to manage the spread of that disease. And of course, it's an environmental fail. It's a profound environmental fail. When you look at the fate of the Maugean skate in Macquarie Harbour, yes, there's been a number of different issues contributing to the concerns around the skate, but the scientists have been abundantly clear. It is fish farms that are driving that species towards extinction, and the number one thing that we need to do to save the Maugean skate in Macquarie Harbour is to pull fish farms out of Macquarie Harbour. That is the clear recommendations of the expert scientists to the federal government. And of course, the impacts don't extend to the fish themselves, but we've seen Tassal just in the last year or so identifying the sardine fishery in the northeast of the state as a potential feedstock for their fish. A sardine fishery, the absolute base of the food chain in the marine environment, food for a whole different raft of different species, and the salmon industry wants to go after it. So the review is important, and it's an acknowledgement of the fail. As the leader of the Greens has said, we are hopeful, we are optimistic, we are going to work really hard to make it as good as possible, but as it stands at the moment, there is not a single bit of change that's happened. And let me say this needs to happen, and this needs to happen quickly, because one thing that happened this week was the National Climate Risk Assessment was released, highlighting that Tasmania has got significant risk to climate change, not only our terrestrial environment, but of course our marine environment. And we have seen what has happened. We have seen what happened in South Australia with rising sea temperatures, and we know that those rising temperatures are driving some of these mass fish deaths, including the mass mortality events of salmon. And one thing we can be sure when it comes to multinational companies, one thing we can be sure when it comes to companies that are actually driven by profit, companies that internationally have been found to be corrupt, is that they will cut and run. As soon as they are not making the profits that they have promised to their shareholders or to their investors, they will cut and run, and they will leave every single one of those jobs high and dry here in the state. But the industry's got a toolbox. We keep hearing about the industry toolbox, the vaccines, the antibiotics, the selective breeding. But the government has a toolbox as well, and it is in regulation, it is in stocking density, and it is in transparency. And of course, this is where the EPA has so consistently failed. We've been asking the EPA for information around mortality data in Macquarie Harbour for ages, and it is simply lacking. Their response is so painfully lacking. And when it comes to the EPA, we've just heard this week the Auditor General has found that the EPA EPA has failed in its regulatory oversight of the management when it comes to landfill. So there are significant concerns when it comes to environmental management overseen by the EPA, and that includes the dumping of morts of dead fish in landfill.